Welcome back to the Wizard Shop, and it's time for Jurassic Park Expeditionary. Let's get started. So you caught me on the weekend, not at the lake, not yachting. We got some family coming in from out of town and we'd like to visit with the family. So I'm not going to wear my wizard uniform on the weekends because I'm chilling on the weekends. Unfortunately, I'm not chilling on the yacht today. But we are going to be chilling looking at this really nice 2011 Jeep Wrangler. It is the 2-door, not the 4-door Unlimited. And the bill on this thing is going to be outrageously small. There's really not a whole lot to do with this. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just here for an oil change and some fluid surfaces. That's it. If you have a mechanic and every time you go there it's $5,000 or more, something is wrong. It can't be that way every time. And this is the proof of it. It's just going to be some fluid surfaces and oil change out the door. It doesn't have to be $5,000 every time, guys. This guy has some really sweet, awesome cars. You saw the little red Beetle that was in here a little bit ago. Now he's bringing in this Jeep, and we have another awesome surprise after this one is done. But you'll have to subscribe if you want to check and see what's going on next on the really sweet vehicle he'll bring next. We'll go ahead and look around this one. It does have some modifications. We'll let Mrs. Wizard look at the really small interior. There's not a whole lot to look at, but then we'll get it on the lift and look underneath. Oh, and by the way, the amount of miles this thing has on it is absurd. It does have a different front bumper, an aftermarket front bumper. The one thing I really like about this Jeep is the functionality is very strong. It was done very well. There are customizations, but it's not ostentatious. It's not out of this league. It's really nice, very tastefully done. And it has some 35s. They are Needle Trail Grapplers MT, 35-inch, and some XD wheels. It actually looks very, very good. I see a lot of aftermarket big wheels and tires on trucks and Jeeps and things, and it looks very nasty. It looks gaudy. This one actually fits the bill. It looks very nice. Again, we come around to the back. We have a bicycle carrier. We have an aftermarket bumper. Again, very tastefully modded, as you've heard that term before. This thing is very clean, very nice shape. We used to have one of these, Mrs. Wizard, 2008 Unlimited. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a cool car.
Yeah, it was really cool. We took it to Colorado. This one's actually been to Colorado a few times. I think it just came back from there not too long ago. Let's go ahead and get into the interior and let Mrs. Wizard show you around.
Okay, ladies and gents, as the wizard said, these miles are absolutely absurd. 5,000. That's it.
Not 57,000.
No, there's only 4 digits there. 5,000 miles. So this thing is like new. The dash is in great shape. And let me tell you, it's really easy and convenient to do this interior review because there's no ceiling to get in the way. The exterior panels have been removed, which is great for nice airflow. Not good if you're wanting to prevent sunburns. Has a very simple dash, simple controls. This is a 6-speed manual, which definitely would help when you're up in the mountains. It does look shockingly familiar to the Wrangler that we had. Much of my time was spent in this seat, which is cloth, by the way, with a nice pattern to it, but spent in this seat, one hand holding the bar, the other hand holding the bar on top as we were maneuvering boulders through Colorado. So it has a lot of space that you can definitely anchor yourself into here. This does have a back seat, and it has enough room for a family of 4 to do some off-roading as well. As you see, lots of open paneling, so obviously no sagging headroof, and even if the panels were here, it's a hardtop plastic. This thing is in really, really, really good shape. Let's go ahead and check what's underneath the hood.
This is kind of like the Hummer H1 that's over there, Mrs. Wizard, as far as opening the hood. And there we have the Chrysler 3.8 V6. This is before the Pentastar V6. And these are very torquey down low. They don't have a lot of high horsepower, but really when you're out wheeling in 4-wheel low, you don't need 750 horsepower to go 2 miles an hour through boulders and up a creek or something like that. It's a very dependable engine. Yes, they did use these in minivans, but because they're so dependable, you can drive this engine for easily 250 to 300,000 miles without a whole lot of trouble. That would be what I would want in my Jeep. I don't necessarily need high horsepower. Just need it to know that it's always going to start. I'm not going to leave me stranded out in the middle of the woods somewhere. You can see there's a lot of room around it to work. If something does go wrong, it's very simple to fix. It's not an engine out job for everything you need to do. Everything's right there. Any work that would be done on this engine out in the bush would be done probably standing on the bumper or kneeling on the bumper, and put a pad up here and you can work on it. Or you could get a stool or something and stand on it. But this thing is really, really nice. Okay. One thing that I put on my Wrangler when I had it was Daystar latches, because in high wind situations these ones like to flex and move around. Maybe these newer ones don't do that, but our 08 did. I definitely had some upgrades on that. One thing that's kind of neat about these vehicles is they make kits to put a 5.7 Hemi in them. And although that sounds really cool, it's like, oh dude, I could have a Hemi in this thing, I'd be rocking. I've done some off-roading, quite a bit of off-roading in my life, especially in the military. And there's a reason why a Hummer doesn't have 950 horsepower. There's a reason why a 5-ton dump truck in the military doesn't have 1,200 horsepower. Because when you really truly are in those situations where you're crawling through rocks or over logs or things, the only thing 950 horsepower is going to do for you is crack your transfer case like an egg, break your U-joints or your drive shafts, or break the shafts going to the wheels. I've seen this so many times. I knew a guy who did a Hemi swap on his JK Wrangler, and it wasn't a week later. He had to have a specialty tow truck go out and get him out of the woods. Just completely grenaded his drivetrain. Way too much power. In the military, you remember the little CJ2 or the really tiny little Jeeps with the 4 cylinders? I don't even know what they had, 40 horsepower, 30, 60, I don't know what it was, but it's such a small amount. Yet it hauled troops, it moved things in low range, and they did an excellent job.
Isn't that the kind of Jeep that my grandpa had in World War II?
Yeah, he was a chaplain, and he had this Jeep. You can see him there. It's an old picture, very old, World War II. Trust me guys, if you're a true off-roader, you don't need 1,200 horsepower. That is not the answer to get through the woods. If it truly was the answer and it did so well, the military would use it. That Hummer over there has 195 horsepower. The ones that I drove in the military could never even exceed 60 miles an hour because they didn't have enough horsepower. But who wants to exceed 60 miles an hour in the middle of the woods? So the whole argument of high horsepower and off-road, to me, they do not go together. I will be in disagreement on that. So let's go ahead and get this thing on a lift and take a look underneath. So let's go ahead and take a look underneath this 5,000 mile Jeep. Very low miles. We can see the front of the engine, dry as a bone. Again, very easy to get to. If you were to dent your oil pan, it's very easy to pull that off and fix it. You don't have to drop the whole drivetrain just to take care of it. Go ahead and check these wheels. Brakes look good. Everything's good there, nothing loose. Check over here. Brakes are good, nothing's loose. One thing I do know, when you get big wheels and tires on these, is that this locating bar right here that locates side-to-side movement on the axle will actually bow and flex, which gives a feeling of loose steering, but it's not loose. It's just that this bar actually flexes from all the tension of trying to move such large tires. One of the concerns a customer had was loose feeling in the steering wheel. It may be where we look up to get an aftermarket, I think it's called a panhard bar. But while we had this on the ground with the engine off, I had Junior Met wiggle the steering wheel back and forth, and you actually could see the panhard bar flexing. And there's your play. There's where you feel like you have loose steering. This panhard bar is not strong enough to hold the axle in place and move the friction of the large tires. There are upgrades for that, and we'll see if we can get that taken care of. Here's our electronic disconnect for our sway bars right here, so you can disconnect the sway bar and get more articulation. Thinking about this differential right here, for anybody who's true off-roader, which I was for a while, I'm not so much anymore, but I don't care how high your front seat sits up in the air or how high your cab sits in the air. That doesn't impress me. That does nothing for me. A true off-roader increases the distance from here to the ground, not from the top of the tire to the sky. That does nothing. If you want to clear logs, you want to clear rocks, if you want to ford deep streams without worrying about hitting a boulder or something, right here is where you do your lift. Not right here on the springs. You do need to put springs on a little bit taller to fit the bigger tire. But whenever I see a Land Rover or a Toyota Land Cruiser and I see great distance right here all the way to the ground, I'll give a thumbs up. I'm like, you did it right, buddy. That's a true off-roader. I see a lot of 3/4 ton and 1 ton pickup trucks that are really tall. The truck itself is really, really tall. But you look at the big giant rear differential being a 1 ton, and it's like this far off the ground. It's like you've accomplished absolutely nothing with your ride. Nothing at all. So, anyways, let's go ahead and move on our way back. Here's our front drive shaft. I don't expect to find a whole lot wrong with 5,000 miles on it. Even the exhaust looks fairly new. Nothing wet. Transmission, the 6-speed. It says Hansel is the company that makes the transmission there. And here's our transfer case, completely manual. There's nothing really electronic about it, which is probably the way I would have it. That is in very good shape and not leaking.
Yep. I'd be kind of worried about the cat here. This looks like one, not that I'm saying that people would steal them, but would this be one you'd want to put maybe a cage on?
That is becoming a problem, especially in the Wichita area. So many people are losing their catalytic converters. I've heard that many times in the Wichita area. People say they go to start their car and it sounds like a NASCAR. Like, what happened? Well, somebody ganked your catalytic converters. That's what happened, unfortunately. But there are cages and there's things they make out there to help protect that. It's definitely an option. Here we have the gas tank, and it's got a nice steel skid plate on it, protect it from getting scraped and puncturing a hole in it. Here's our drive shaft. Again, it's in good shape with such low miles. There's our differential. Check the brakes in the back. They look good. Nothing loose. One thing I think is not good is having our evap canister right here where you could scrape it on a boulder. It's not going to cause any issues that are going to stop you from driving. That will turn into an eternal check engine light that will never get fixed until you buy a new charcoal canister. It just looks so easy to get damaged there. I don't know where else you could put it. Maybe way high up here. That's where I would have put it. Not down there where it could get crushed by a rock. Here's the brakes. Everything looks good there. Shocks are in good shape. They're not wet. One thing I like to see is there are plenty of flex of the brake hose here. So there's room for articulation. You know it wasn't done right when these are tight as a drum when you go to lift it in the air. These have some flex, quite a bit of flex left in them, so that's really good. They did good. Here's our stock muffler and our bicycle carrier. Obviously the tires are in good shape. They look brand new. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the ground. So all the fluid services and everything that needed to be done on this have already been done, and also the oil change, which is also a fluid service. So the bill's not going to be very high on this. Again, that's one thing to watch out for is every time you go to your local mechanic, it's a transmission rebuild. It's got to be the engine coming out. It's going to be this, it's going to be that, $2 grand, $5 grand. That's impossible. There's going to have to be some small bills here or there. Even Hoovy gets small bills once in a while. So not a giant bill, nothing seriously wrong, obviously with only 5,000 miles on it. Definitely wanted to do a video on this one because I believe it was very well done. The way it was customized, very tastefully done. It looks really good and it's very functional. So if you're curious what kind of tools we use to do the fluid services on this really nice Jeep, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And if you want to see the really sweet vehicle that's coming up next after this one, as soon as he picks it up, make sure to hit the subscribe button because you don't want to miss out on what's coming next. It's really, really awesome. I've never had one of these in my shop before, much less seen them. It's really, really cool. Thanks for watching.